congratulations. C'est pizza qui nous avons été canaux j'ai tout que naster.
Hello, my name is Paulette Fox. I come from the Blood Tribe. My Blackfoot name is Holy Walking Woman.
Scano so gwego. Giaso goenkuse. Gaenkihaga nyagwe shouta. Hodeneshoni.
Tanitada. Nizi Nanachu Ata.
Dancy Alex Wilson Tisniyasun Opasquayak Cree Nation Ochi Nina. So my name's Alex Wilson. I'm from the Opasquayak Cree Nation.
When a language disappears, a lot is lost. A language is a repository of cultural wealth. It's a way, this actually relates to what I was saying before, each language is a way of understanding and interpreting the world. It carries the wealth of tradition and history, oral history, which can be extremely rich. I mean, we should recognize that there's enormous loss when the cultural wealth of a society disappears. And that's encapsulated crucially in its language.
Hi, my name is Shirley Desjardins. I'm originally from Wrigley, and I speak Slavey. That's my mother tongue. I married to a man from Tlutzelke. That's where we make our home now, and we presently living in Yellowknife and teaching at Mildred Hall School. And I'm teaching the Tlinchon language at Mildred Hall School to kindergarten, actually grade 1 to grade 8. Kindergarten, we're teaching what we call the Dene laws to them, because among the Dene people, we have 9 simple laws that were put in place by our elders at the beginning of time so that we can make connections with each other and with the land, and just generally having respect for our surroundings and basically the land and the animals. And so those are the teachings we do to the kindergarten, preparing them to begin to understand who they are as Dene people. The students that we're working with are from kindergarten or grade 1 to grade 8. That's who we cater to in terms of language teaching. The children that come to us are either Dene, non-Dene, or Inuit students that are learning the language. And that's the only place they hear it is in the classroom where we teach. And so for them to go home and listen to it, they won't be able to. And so we encourage them to use the radio stations that are in the community, because CKLB also offers all the Aboriginal languages of the North in their programming, and so does CKLB and CBC. And so they, I said, because they have to hear it in order for them to learn it, and they have to immerse themselves in the language groups so that they could be able to hear the different sounds and begin to recognize those different sounds that we're learning. But for the younger ones, it's basically the different sounds of the language that they're learning. So once they're able to make those sounds and make connection to what this sound means in that language, then it becomes a little easier for them. So
Just hold them like this. You're good. Okay, now this part here, when you put up the 4, you want to stand back.
Yeah, I think there is an urgency. Thinking about my own community and dialect, which is the end dialect of Cree, Swampy Cree. There are very few people that speak the old language. So there's people that are communicating in Cree, but they don't understand the philosophical belief system behind the word. So they're using it just to kind of communicate, but not the bigger connection to cosmology. And so once we lose that generation of high Cree speakers, we're in big trouble. And I think there's the reason why I say we're in big trouble is because people that are just communicating in the language often change the language in a way that aligns it with heteropatriarchy. And here's an example of this. In our school, we have a mandate to teach the Cree language. And so every morning the kids speak Cree. You know, what they're speaking is the Lord's Prayer. And so they've changed the language. I mean, they've changed the term for the Great Mystery, Kishimantu, which means an energy that is in everything, that everyone has access to, that everyone gains power from, and the humility that goes along with that, and the not knowing everything that goes along with that. They've changed that term to Our Father in Cree, Notawe or Notawina, meaning that they've changed this genderless kind of power, unknown power or mystery, to now a male god. And so that in itself is a huge kind of shift in thinking, because it changes how you view who can dictate our spiritual life. So within the church, only the God dictates, right? But really it's not God, it's our interpretation of God. So God's representative on earth, who is the Pope or whichever, in whichever religious tradition. And so then that person carries all the power. So it's like a triangle, and the higher up, the more power you have, and only certain people can be up there. And within that system, only men can be up there. And so when we're shifting our language from a circle where everyone has a place and has power within it, to this, we're shifting the power structure in our own communities. So even though we may live in communities that respected women, or where women had a prominent place like everyone, and even if we continue with those traditions, the meaning of the traditions get changed because the language has changed. And so what that has meant in our community is that now men have more power in spiritual settings. So that's just one small example, and there's many of them, of how the language has changed because there's losing the people that understand the philosophical understandings. And the dictionaries that we have in Cree purposely left out terminology or concepts that were around equal spiritual power. because it was seen as undermining the Christian assimilation process. So anything that undermined it was removed. And so if people now are learning, and that's the dictionary, or they're on their app, and it's not there, then it's like, how do we get it? We can only get it from people that know it. And so the other part of it too is that some of these concepts, like the word for catch in Cree, is decelerate something to a 0 velocity. That's how it literally translates. So you have to understand physics. And so then if we miss that generation that can teach it to the next generation, then we just have people saying that word means catch. Completely different meaning. Because decelerating to a 0 velocity is relational. You have a relationship with that thing, and you know, and the other is that it's happening, you're just catching something. So it's huge, like it's so profound. It's urgent, yes, it's urgent.
Closer by those holes. Whole thing.
Send me some pictures.
Learning Tsuut'ina, well, I've always been learning it, and from elementary to high school, we've had that option. Our language was, because there were so many of us bused into the city to the schools that we went to, they, instead of taking French, they gave us the option to take Aboriginal Studies course. And because the majority were from the reserve, it was Tsuut'ina that we learned. And we learned basics like animals, names of places, hello, and each year we learned a bit more. And we did use it. We made nicknames for our friends out of the animals, and we used the words and the numbers to keep secrets from the other students. And so, but I didn't carry that on. I didn't continue learning the language, and it was hard to, because you have the personal connection with an elder or somebody from the community that knew the language, and that wasn't available. My mother could understand it, but she couldn't speak it very well. She knew descriptions, places, things, but she didn't know how to put all the sentences together. So I got little phrases that I learned, like shut up and sit down and stuff like that as I was growing up that I remember. And then they opened up an adult education program on the reserve, and with that they opened up a language program that was in the evenings. But yeah, there's 190 words, almost 200 words in the first level of the language program on the reserve, and so I'm halfway there. And then there's other levels that I'd like to continue taking. I noticed in our class they range from teenagers to elders that are taking the program, and it's really encouraging when we get to sit around and talk about, use the language, and laugh with each other, and then we get to ask deeper questions about the language. Like, I noticed a lot of the language has to deal with descriptions of things, so it's more, I guess, verbs. So when you talk about a white man, there is no word for a white man, but there is a word for the fat between the meat and the hide, and that's kahale. So that's how they named the white man. So there's all these different descriptions of things. For instance, the Cree, or Nishina, and the Stony, they thought the Stony were Cree, so the Stony were called the Chitansha Nishna. So there's that Nishna, that Cree, but they thought they were the Forest Cree. So that's how a lot of things a lot of the words have different meanings than the English. So learning it, it's also learning about the land. Like, well, there are models out there that, for instance, the University of Lethbridge has been teaching Blackfoot for years, and they've had a tried and tested in a model that's been working for them. So I would not create anything new again. I would see what's working there and see if we could bring it to this campus. And the same thing with the U of A, they've been teaching it for about 20 years. They've been teaching Cree.
He's gonna pile on top of each other.
My words of encouragement today for the young people are to understand as much as you can the land around you, the water, the animals, and understand that you come from the same place and that you share that place with them. And there's a lot of teachings we have in our language about birds, buffalo, the different animals, and all those teachings come to us in the language. So it's important that we understand that the words in our Aboriginal Indigenous languages aren't just words, they're relationships. So anytime we try and translate from an Indigenous language into English, we're going to lose meaning, we're going to lose sentiment. Sometimes we'll lose the essence of it, sometimes it'll get mistranslated. So it's really important that we do our best to sit with our grandparents, to sit with people who speak, there's a lot of archive material, listen to that information, and encourage that our language isn't contained in a book or on paper, but nowadays that's what we have to turn to. We have books, we have ways of writing our language. Do your best to learn what you can from it, but remember that everything in our way has spirit, our language has spirit, and so we use our language. My elders, my grandparents used to tell me, be careful what you say, words are arrows. So in our way, it's gentle. We speak gently. We know that anything that comes out of our mouth could harm somebody worse than a bullet or an arrow. That's why we say our words are arrows. So we have to be careful what we say. And at the same time, to remember that it's in us. We all have a genetic memory. We all have that DNA of where we come from, and our roots go further back than even 7 generations. So sometimes I have dreams in Blackfoot and I don't understand. So if you're trying, they're going to come to you. And everybody struggles, so it's important too, though, to keep trying. Try hard, and our language is important. Without it, our culture, our ceremonies, it loses meaning too. And when we pray in our language, we say Atsima or Atsimoishkan. Atsimoishkan is a combination of how we act and how we speak. So when we speak Atsamoishkan, we're trying to get back to that balance of life, Atsimapi. And how we act, our behaviors and our words together bring our balance. So try hard and speak from the heart, and remember watch what you say. And it's really hard in universities because universities are built for arguing. Theories, one is over the other, and that's not how our way is. Everything has a purpose, everything has its place and its diversity, and so we find our common ground in all of the diversity. Us Blackfoot people, we have our knowledge of sign language that goes across all Indian country, so we have to preserve our sign languages too and not let that get lost.
So, greetings of peace. My name is, my real name is Goenkyuse, and it means she's visiting. And my English name is Beverly Jacobs, and I'm Mohawk from Six Nations, Grand River Territory, and which is part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So, I'm not a fluent speaker. I learned my introduction from my dad, who is a fluent speaker and a teacher years ago. So a generation ago, when my daughter was just going to start school, parents made a decision that they wanted to make sure that they had language in the schools, and to build a whole immersion school. So a school that just only focused on language, immersion, like total immersion into the language. And the schools wouldn't do it. So what we did as a community, as families, was we boycotted. We boycotted the schools and said we're not sending our kids until the language is totally immersed and respected. And it sort of became, we were meeting in basements of parents' homes and starting to get the language speakers in to just start teaching. And it was a lot of work. It was it was still the impacts of colonization even on our own people to acknowledge who we are as a people is through our language. And that our languages are important because it's part of our identity. It's part of our connection to our lands and our territories. And it's all part of our ceremonies. And so it started. The immersion program started in kindergarten. They just started doing it. And then the fight with the Department of Indian Affairs to say those monies that you have for each individual person that are going into schools, we want that money. And we had to fight with them to get that money. But it ended up being a big negotiation and a big, really a lot of that advocacy again, the parents taking it on and saying this is going to happen because for the same what's happening in your community is we were losing our speakers, like losing the fluent language speakers. So it's just staying strong, knowing that it's right, that language is a major part of our identity. I'm a Mohawk person. In my language, Gayankihaga is the word for Mohawk. But what the word literally translates to is people of the flint. So it directly connects us to our territory. Our language is a part of who we are, and our kids need to know that that's who they are and their identity, and it's a direct connection to their lands and their territories, and that's where the strength comes from. And that's where the empowerment comes from, in being in my language a Haudenosaunee person.
Put it to the top, the ear. Yeah, put it on the other side.
Come on! So you know what? The secret of the world isn't overcoming difference. It's celebrating difference. It's understanding that each unique language around the world is a sacred gift to not just our people, but to all peoples of the world. And yet, as the United Nations tells us, we lose 2 Indigenous languages every month, 2 ways of understanding the world. And so it's really critical that not only all of us preserve these languages for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all humanity. If you think about Canada, the word Canada itself is a First Nations word, meaning village. We think about the word Ottawa, again another word for village in First Nations languages. Our languages have been gifts to the country. They're also sacred for our ways of understanding. So if you're a child, learn how to say something in a different way with a different spirit by learning your language. It's one of the greatest gifts that you can give to yourself, to your family, and to everybody else in the world. Just think what the world would be like if we only spoke one way. We all need to hear those spirits of those different languages, and in that way, we make the world a better place for everyone.
Ha